Here we go now.
Good evening. Thank you for joining the Lynn Show Season 3. This is the finale. Lynn Show goes global. And I do have to say tonight, we as advertised, have some of our Australian Jewish friends with us. And of course, looking forward to the conversation. And I do want to say that it has been really, really great getting to speak to so many Jews from around the world over these last weeks during this season number 3. And I think it's brought the world closer. I think it's been a little bit of like a balm for the sore parts of our communal Jewish soul over this COVID time. And we've shown that we can really reach out and there's a lot to talk about. And, you know, vaccines are coming out now. I've got mine. We're getting there. I'm looking forward. All these great young Jews that we've had on the show, I'm looking forward to getting them and their friends. And I want one room with everyone together and really working hard to make the Jewish world that much smaller. Now that Zoom and video conference have become the norm, let's use it to our Jewish advantage. And so it's really been great. So thank you for having tuned in and having participated. And we're looking forward to a great conversation tonight. So, and we're post Passover, of course, and so we should be feeling really great about Jewish history, really proud of that, and we should be hopeful, and we should be looking to the future to continue building, wondering what next year's Passover story is going to bring us, right? But we're going to do whatever we can to bring the world closer, to make deeper connections, to be more proud and more active as Jews. And that's what kind of this show is all been about the whole season. So thanks again for joining us. We are showing this. This is a live show. It's filmed live with no edits. But in full disclosure, it's 3:00 in the afternoon on the East Coast, and these Australians of ours are waking up super bright and early to join us. So we're really grateful for them. So in order to show our thanks, we got to say the truth here. Okay, they're waking up the crack of dawn, watching the sun come up to have this conversation with us. Okay, so first of all, we'll do our little section like what are Jews doing in Australia? Let's do a little bit the news of the Jews, or Jews in the news in Australia. Here we go. The British settled the continent of Australia in 1788. The first Jews came there on the first fleet. There were 8 convicts. We know the sordid history of Australia's British population, and the Jews are part of it. Convict meant you could be a thief. That's it, a simple petty thief. Just accused of that, and you're on a ship to Australia. There were 8 Jews that came in to Botany Bay in 1788, and now in the last census in almost 10 years ago, in 2011, showed about 112,000 Jews, 0.5% of the Australian population. Within the first 60 years after settling in 1788, there were 1,000 Jews that came, mostly convicts as young as 8 years old, and plenty of women convicts also. So the population could grow and the Jews could marry each other. The Chevra Kadisha, the Burial Society, is the first record in 1817. In Sydney, 1832, the first Jewish wedding. 1844, the first synagogue. 1850s, the gold rush, which of course brought a few Jews, maybe feigning criminal activity in order to get there. I'm not sure about that. And the 1890s, of course, just like in America, where the population boomed because of the pogroms in Eastern Europe, so too in Australia. And by the turn of the century, or really at the advent of World War II, when they were in 61,000 Jews living there in 1933, through the Holocaust, World War II period, the number will triple, okay, to close to 180,000. That will dwindle until today from there. Even there were more Jews that tried to come there during World War II. Australia very famously rejected a huge refugee resettlement proposal that would have brought so many more Jews to Australia. Like America, I guess they had their quotas, they had their reasons. But Jewish life, because it was built on convicts, there was a lot of equanimity there, and there wasn't a lot of anti-Semitism for a very, very long time. It really came up in the Second World War. The anti-Semitism started, and it's rampant there, like it is in many places, of course, which we'll learn about tonight. So now it's there is a thriving Jewish community in Australia, and we're happy to have 4 great representatives of the young Jewish community in Australia with us tonight. So let us bring them on the show. We will introduce them one by one, and excited to get to know them. Good morning over there in Australia. Excellent.
Yeah.
Hey guys. Hello, Rami, Joey, Jason, and Rachel. So go one by one quickly. Rami Tal is a passionate Australian Jew with a Israeli father and a South African mother, and he's been with strong Jewish identity, spending a lot of time in Israel and volunteering in the Sydney Jewish community to any way you can express your Jewish values. A madrich at the Orsam, meaning a student leader at the Olami Jewish organizations there, the Friendship Circle in Camp Saba, and you are a home chef, psychologist, budding psychologist, and adventurer. Thanks for coming, Rami. How do you marry being a chef and a psychologist? Anything we should know?
Thanks for having me. No special tricks there. It's just the 2 interests that I have that I like to share with other people. And I'm no means a psychologist.
Food is the road. What is it? Food is the path to the soul.
Yep, the eyes of the window to the soul.
Stomach is the way to the soul. Something like that. If you want to get into someone's kishkas, you got to know what to feed them, and that comfort food. Don't feed them the kishka. That's not so great. It's a metaphor, right? But the comfort food hopefully will give at least deal with the Jewish psychological mental issues that we have. Great, but thanks for joining us, Rachel Hurwitz from Sydney, as well. Hi,
nice
Rachel. Thank you. You're also studying psychology and law, 2 things at University of South Wales, and a clerkship at Clayton Utz. I don't know even how to pronounce that. A commercial law firm, and working there after you graduate, you hope. You are involved in the Jewish Leadership Brownstone program in New York as well, run by my dear friends, Rabbi Mati Sushard and Yonin Greenwald. So that's great. So you're a local down in the Lower East Side, and of course, as well involved with Orsam, students in Sydney, and you're the oldest of 4 sisters and a puppy. You have a puppy you're proud of. And how long has your family been in Australia, Rachel? How far back do you go?
So my family, like Rami, they immigrated from South Africa about 25 years ago.
I find that it's a common story. So a lot of South Africans are transplanted to Australia, which seems very far away, to a very far trip, but somehow the commonality is attractive enough.
Yeah, for sure.
Great. Thank you for joining us, Rachel. Joey Schonker from Melbourne, Australia, and finishing your studies at Monash University, double degree in banking and finance, economics, but also I don't know if you're the chef, but working at Mama Falafel, which obviously Middle Eastern food, and love traveling, and you've also been involved in the Jewish community. We're really happy to have you here, Joey. And both you are in Melbourne. How long has your family been in Melbourne?
Just 10 years.
Where'd they come from before that?
Yeah, we moved from the Netherlands before that.
Okay.
I grew up there.
You grew up in the Netherlands already. Okay.
Yeah.
And what was the cause for the move to Australia?
So my parents just wanted to check it out. Originally the plan was for 2 years, and here we are 10 years later. Yeah, we've settled in nicely. It's a great community, great place to live.
Great, Joey. Thank you for joining. And finally, Jason Orenbuch. By the way, Joey is a cousin of one of our More Manhattan staff members, Daniela Stern, and Jason is a cousin as well as our Ilana Kovalev, our program coordinator. So great, Jason. Thanks for coming. You are part of the Melbourne Jewish community. Of course, you're in the property sector the past decade, in real estate there, and suburban retail leasing business, international domestic retail operators, et cetera, in that space. We'd love to hear more about it. How did you get involved in real estate, Jason?
Back when I was 18, I just had this absolute passion and did my license, and 15 years later, here we are, and absolutely love it. Just love the hustle. walking the pavement in the city and just being on the phone and doing deals.
Great. Okay, well, thank you for waking up so early. Thank all of you for waking up early and joining us.
Pleasure.
And let's jump in. Obviously, we're in America. We assume as Americans that you hear more about the news in our country than we hear about the news in your country. That may or may not be true, but you have to give America their self-centered, egocentric view of the world. That's just that's what you get. But we don't really know. We don't know so much about what's gone on in Australia. So let's start at least with COVID that we've all been suffering for a year. What has the COVID situation been like there? What are the how observant or how compliant are the people? What's it been like for you? Let's start with our psychologists anyway, the scientists in the group. So Rami, we'll start with you. Give us an idea of just let us know what has it been like over the year? Strong lockdowns, not lockdowns, easygoing, tough. What's it been like?
I just need to preface, I'm not a psychologist. I did an undergrad in psych, so nothing that I say has any legitimacy, but I will share my opinion regardless. So I felt that people in Australia were quite observant of the rules that were put in place and respectful of the boundaries. And our lockdown lasted a very short time because the government went ahead and closed borders quite efficiently. And from that, we are now in the lucky stage in Sydney where we're essentially open. I'm back in the office. I can go to restaurants. The only place I have to wear a mask is on public transport. Can have 50 people in my home. So I'm going to have a big Shabbos at my place tomorrow night. Right. And so for me, we're in a very fortunate position. Minimal deaths there have been in Australia, but we've done quite well. I get to see my grandparents and not worry about social distancing. Even though we should keep the 1.5 meter rule. So we're very fortunate here. It's been handled very well.
Great. That's good to hear. Not many places can say that. Rachel, how's it been for you? What's been your observation of this past year?
Yeah, I think it's been an interesting year. I have to say that Australia's done very well. I feel like it almost would be too privileged to complain about our situation because I guess in Sydney at least, Melbourne's a bit different, but in Sydney life went back to normal pretty quickly and we were lucky to be able to see friends and family. I think the one thing that people overseas kind of don't realize about Australia is that we can't actually travel overseas at all. Like we're kind of like locked in our little Australia bubble. Right. No possibility to move anywhere.
Wow. Okay. Right. And we heard in the beginning, New Zealand, of course, was like COVID free. Did that keep up? Did they stay COVID free this whole time?
I think they've had a few cases. I mean, look, it's quite funny. The Australian media and our government like freaks out over one case or two cases. Right. And then you speak to your friends, at least my family in South Africa, friends in America, and they're like, yeah, we have 2,000 cases a day. Like no one blinks an eyelid. So New Zealand's kind of the same. Like if there's one or two cases, everyone's freaking out. It's all over the news.
Pretty remarkable. And are vaccines readily available? I mean, is everyone vaccinated or it's not even a pressure or a rush to get vaccinated?
They've just started rolling out the vaccine, but it's all the older people in the community first.
Wow. Great. Let's see, Jason and Joey. Jason, how about over there in Melbourne? What's it been like in Melbourne?
A little bit more tedious and long. We Melbourne or Victoria we were in a lockdown for I think 6 to 9 months. We had a very hard and strong government. We had a small first wave, but then a very big second wave, which we went into a stage 4 lockdown, meaning that you can only leave the house for 4 reasons: for shopping, exercise for an hour, caregiving.
And were people compliant? Like the Australians are good because obviously your history is a bunch of criminals that started the place. You would think that you won't listen to any rules.
Do you know what? It was really
the American stereotype of Australia. It's terrible. It is terrible. I apologize to all Americans.
What was really fascinating is they implemented an 8 p.m. curfew,
right?
Which was they announced it on the day and they implemented it that same day. And I remember going to the supermarket at 7:45 and coming back home at 8:05, and there were absolutely no cars on the road And it was just amazing to see how compliant our population is, and just how immediate those rules and laws come into effect.
That's pretty.
Which, you know, to the credit of the government here, I mean, we are COVID free. We did have a little third wave, and we did have what they called a circuit breaker lockdown for 5 days, which was a couple of weeks ago. But, you know, the vaccine's starting to roll out here, and thank God, our economy is actually, it went up 3%.
That's a good
in this
segue.
last quarter.
Joey's our resident economist over here. Joey, how has the economy fared? How's it been in at least in your academic study of Australian economy? How's it been?
It's been a roller coaster, to be honest. In 2020, all of last year, I'd say things were definitely contracting. Businesses were going down, lots of for leases, but also in general, house prices were going down. Rentals were hard to fill in. But then in 2021, like Jason just mentioned, everything's kind of rebounded, with travel being back, people being back in the office, and people just feeling very relieved and optimistic. So, yeah.
It sounds like Australia's done it. You guys did a good job down there during COVID. We should have taken a little more of your lead. I mean, we can't. America doesn't work that way. We're definitely not compliant people, and it's just too traumatic. Too many problems over here to get a good grip on things. But I'm happy that you've had such a, at least during considering the circumstances, such a smooth experience with it.
Rabbi, it's also important to note that I think Australia is like 1/10 of the population. There's 25 to 30 million Australians, and there's 350 million Americans.
Right.
But we have the same land size, bar Alaska. So it's a lot easier to get people to be compliant here.
Right. Let's talk like the Jewish community in Australia. So we'll start with you, Rachel, from Sydney. There now. First, let me just ask you. Can you give us the lay of the land? What are the major cities that have large Jewish populations there in Australia?
So it's Sydney, Melbourne, and Perth are really the big ones. I think there are other Jews like dispersed throughout Australia. There's probably a couple in Brisbane, maybe a few in Tasmania. Who knows?
Right.
But that's the major cities.
And so, is the Jewish community very, very close knit? As a community, how have you found it very, very interconnected and very close-knit?
Yes, for sure. I mean, all the Jews live in one area, kind of. I think it's the same in Melbourne as well. And, you drive down the road and it's like, this is my friend's house, this is my friend's house, this is my friend's house. And you can kind of pick everyone out. The shuls are also super close to each other. So it's good. It's fun.
And how often will you travel from Sydney, let's say, to Melbourne or to Perth? I mean, how interconnected are those communities?
I mean, it's not a close drive, so you probably would have to plan a trip and fly there. To Perth, it's really quite far. It's a 5-hour flight from Sydney, so it's not kind of something you just casually do for Shabbos. But people definitely do go up to Melbourne for the weekend and go see their friends there, and it's pretty cool. Like, a lot of people in Sydney are very close to people in Melbourne, which is really nice.
Great, Rami, you've been very involved in the Jewish community there. Tell us a little bit about the nature of anti-Semitism in Australia today, and how that has affected the Jewish community, Jewish identity.
Yeah, it's a really interesting space because I guess we are a bit of a close-knit community. Yes, there are your Jews who don't go to the main Jewish day schools, so they might have a different experience to what I have. But I was quite sheltered. But when you go to university, you start hearing the rhetoric mainly around Israel. So I guess understanding Hasbara and how to have those conversations is really important. Most of the time, they don't want to have the conversation with you. They prefer just to shout. But when there is an opportunity, people don't know and they're ignorant. A lot of the anti-Semitism that I've faced or heard, especially in the workplace, is more ignorance and not understanding the complexities of what is happening in Israel, or going with the Jewish libels that we've been hearing for centuries and thinking that is mainstream. So that's like the scariest part. The smart, progressive people have these views, but it's important for us to have the confidence and knowledge to stand up and have those conversations.
Has there been Has there been an uptick in anti-Semitic incidents, and there's a strong response from the Jewish community, or has it been like pretty even keeled for the last decade?
My understanding is that there's been a recent uptick in anti-Semitism. I think I definitely know in the States and Europe, there's been quite a high rise the past few years. I don't think our rise is as steep. However, people are still facing anti-Semitism here. And again, very much in the form of anti-Israel rhetoric.
Right. Does anyone that you have a particular quick experience that's happened to you, or you've been involved with, that highlights a little bit of what what young Jews are dealing with anti-Israel rhetoric there?
I can speak to it. I mean, people are posting on Instagram all the time about, like, most recent example, the Israel apartheid vaccines for the Palestinians.
Right.
And I try to engage with them. A less recent, my first week at work, somebody said, I said to somebody, I heard that the rise in anti-Semitism in France is really bad. She was from France. And she said, yeah, but that's because the Jews, what they're doing to the Palestinians, the Jews control the media, so they're putting it out there. Right. The Jews aren't inclusive. All of these old Jewish libels, and I was rattled because it was my first week of work. I didn't know how to deal with it. I would handle it a lot differently now. But a lot of people are facing that. A lot of my friends are facing those type of conversations at work. So I think that's the biggest danger. And then also when we're growing up, probably on the sporting field, that's where it happened mainly. But as I said, the Jewish day schools keep you a bit protected.
In that sense, Australians, like, very, very European in that sense. Most Americans, our community in New York, you don't run into those kind of things at the workplace. It's a very, very super progressive young workplace in New York City for sure. You don't run into these things, but I find that in the conversations with so many Jews around, in normal conversation, these things will come out. Oh yeah, the Israelis are killing Palestinians or denying them vaccines. It's much more rampant elsewhere. Something that we as American Jews, I don't feel like we deal with at the same degree. Joey, what is like Jewish life there? It's interesting because, like in England, the majority of affiliation. I'll put this question to you, Joey. The majority of affiliation was fairly orthodox. What people did in their private lives and their own Jewish observance is their private matter. But in the main, it's only very recently that other denominations have made their presence in Australia. How do you find the Jewish community, let's call it religiously or spiritually, is connected?
I find everybody to be connected in their own way. Whether you come from the Haredi Orthodox community or from the more liberal side of things, everybody likes to be involved, or the majority like to be involved, and at least do something, whether that's having a Shabbos dinner or going to shul, but then in the liberal communities with music.
But it's very much like South African Jewry, I suppose, in a similar way.
Sorry, what was that?
It sounds like it's very much like South African Jewish community, where everyone, yes, regardless of where they are on the actual belief or practice spectrum, is very involved and very positive and very, very proudly Jewish.
Absolutely. And of course, we do have a very large South African presence here, but right. You're absolutely right. Everybody is very proud to be Jewish, and they're strong believers in what they want to. And it's awesome to see how people come together in times of crisis, but also in times of celebration.
It's something, when we do trips to South Africa, so many Americans really remark about, like, regardless of, like I said, religious affiliation or practice, the pride that's there and the community that's there. I know it's very similar that what you have there in Australia, and it's something that we can only dream about on these shores. Jason, I think you're our oldest guest here. Are people? What's the Jewish Australian sort of emigration situation? Are people leaving? Are they staying? Is business good there? Are people looking to get out and spread their wings? You seem to like the real estate market, but in the main, your colleagues and your peers, are people excited to stick around, or are they looking to plant their roots somewhere else?
Yeah, I actually think that a lot of people speaking to a lot of people that have immigrated here over the last 10 to 15 years, they love it. They I think Australia is a very easy life in terms of, you can make good money. It's free from any sort of danger. It's very relaxed here. So I think that once people plant their seeds, they're not going anywhere. My wife, her family immigrated from Israel about 12 years ago. My family, I come from a Holocaust survivor. My grandparents came from Poland. My mum born in Brussels. So yeah, I think it's an easy life. But to your point before, I finished my schooling at a Jewish day school, but before that I went to non-Jewish day schools. I went through anti-Semitism, which was horrible, and it made me have to leave schools. And I think for a long time I hid the fact, or didn't really want to talk about in the workplace being Jewish, just because of all those experiences. But as I got older and a bit more wiser, and in my job I speak to hundreds of people daily and from all sorts of background, and you get on a personal level with people, and now I don't shame it away or hide it. I really embrace it, and actually I am Jewish, and I actually find that people are really like, oh wow, that's amazing. Like, can you tell me a bit about Shabbos, and tell me, what are the kippahs and that sort of thing. So I think that that is amazing. However, there is anti-Semitism that has become a bit more rife, and I think, to Rami's point before, the media here don't portray Israel in a good way. Always, when we turn on the TV here and there's something going on in Israel, they'll show it from the Palestinian point of view, which is really sad.
Is you think that's just because of just liberal tendencies, sort of the underdog, or do you think there are undercurrents there that are a little bit more nefarious, a little not giving Israel the benefit of the doubt ever?
I think not giving Israel the benefit of the doubt, and I think it's just uneducated. And I think that, they see it from that underdog mentality that, Israel's oppressing the Palestinians, and, they've got them under apartheid, and it's really sad. It is really sad. And I think that really changes.
Work to do,
Sorry?
We have our work to do everywhere.
Exactly. And you gotta have a loud voice in your community and outside of your community. But
you have a good voice. You have to have the kind of voice that people will listen to.
Exactly.
That's true. I just want to speak a little bit about like personal life and young Jewish life there. Rachel, let's what's it like for you? You're in school, you finished a degree. First of all, in COVID, obviously, I'm sure it's been different all around the world, but it sounds like Australia is a little more open than other places. What's the Jewish dating scene like there? Are Jews pretty much sticking together? Is that the main? Because in America, outside of people who were raised Orthodox, it's a 70. As of 2013, you had a 73% intermarriage rate in America. It's a very, very, very open society, America. It sounds like it's much more, let's call it, communally oriented in Australia. What would you like to say about the dating scene for young Jews? We know Jason's already married. We figured it out.
Yes, I think you're right. I think it's much more communally focused here. I think everyone's first goal kind of is to marry someone Jewish. I think people are looking for that. They're kind of looking for that traditional Jewish household that keeps, Friday nights and has Shabbos with their family, has those strong Jewish values. But I think more and more we're seeing people say, well, if I find someone I love and they're not Jewish, that's okay, which is in some ways a shame. But I think it's just that the Jewish community is very small. A lot of my friends are saying there's a bit of like a shidduch crisis. There's not enough boys on the scene. That's kind of the talk of the Sydney Jewish community at the moment. But yeah.
Do they have that same problem in Melbourne?
Same.
I wouldn't know.
It's same, but I know that many people actually go to Sydney or to the US to find their loved ones. But in the end, they tend to come back to Melbourne.
Right. Do you think is it considered like a badge of dishonor to end up married to American?
A little bit, but we also understand.
Right. Rami shaking his head. It's okay, Rami. By you, it's okay?
It's all right.
Is there do you find that is the community, I mean, small enough in Sydney, let's say, that most of the Jews your age really sort of will know each other or know of each other in some capacity? It's a few degree of separation.
Yeah, absolutely. Rabbi, we could speak about this topic all day long. Maybe we'll hop on a call afterward and delve into it. But yeah, there's definitely the factor of people feeling like they know everyone. It might not necessarily be the case, but people think they know everyone, which hinders a bit of the relationship building, because you don't want to step on other people's toes, but also at the same time, you want to be with someone that you're comfortable with, but also you want to be with somebody that's new and exciting. Right. So I think there's a lot of self-reflection, and it's not just Jews. I think it's probably everyone to think about love. Esther Perel, a Jewish psychologist, she speaks to this and how it's the most sought after entity in the world, but the least practiced.
Sure.
So that's kind of like my view on it. People need to take more time to reflect and think about it, and hopefully through that they'll be able to know their values and find people who align with those values. And
right. Listen, I'm a big proponent. The values are the key, you know, and the fact that your accent's one way and someone's accent. My wife is English. You know, there are cultural differences, of course, but you know, the English and Americans, they said that it's two people separated by a common language, and that's 10 times more true maybe for us as Australians and South Africans. But I think that, you know, in this world we're going to find more commonality. The commonality being part of the Jewish people. You know, I think that's the bottom line.
Rabbi, you can organize a big shidduch party.
Yeah,
get from around the world.
I'm taking notes of all the people I'm meeting on these programs. You know, oh, that's a good one. Rachel, I got some ideas. You'll let me know. You let me know if you're in the market, okay? And we'll put it together. I think it's a great idea. I think
I have a boyfriend, but I have lots of friends. They're very interested.
Okay, great. We'll take them. I really think that's the way to go. I think we just got to break through the borders and the barriers over there and realize that what we share in common, everything else is wallpaper. You know, it's just it's the accent, it's the customs, but the bottom line is there's a peoplehood over here that because you're on this, I know that you all cherish as well, and I really appreciate that, and I look forward for us to be able to meet in person again soon. I know it's early morning there, so I want to thank you again for waking up early. And I just want to, you know, just as I started a little bit before, but just to share as we wrap up the season and wrap up this show, that there really is, you know, there has to be a light in the darkness, and there has to be lemonade to the lemons. And COVID hopefully has given us the opportunity to rethink a lot of things in life and recalibrate our priorities and our identities, appreciate life more, right? Appreciate health more. And my messaging has been around Purim and Passover this year. It's like focusing on who we are as a people and what we share and our vision, our history, our future together, our values. And it doesn't have to be, it's not to the exclusion of the competition of anybody else in the world, if for that, the fact that we share so much and there's so much to cherish and so much to appreciate and so much to cultivate as part of this pretty awesome people called the Jewish people. And so we need to stay connected, and we need to stay growing, and we need to stay, you know, part of the solution, not part of the problem, building as we go and taking the challenges in stride and growing from them. And that's been the message, you know, of Passover. That's what we come through the other side, feeling that intimacy, that strength, and that excitement and enthusiasm and idealism. And we need to keep dreaming it together. So for you four who have joined me today, and to all the other guests we've had, and people who have watched, I'm very grateful for your participation and for lending your ear And we looked forward to sharing Simcha's happy times together in person for this thing to be behind us finally. And we promise, we make a pledge, we're going to take advantage of it in a deep way. I want to thank my team over here for this season as well. Our video AV producer, Michael, thank you for everything that you've done. And it's been amazing work. And of course, to Ilana and Jackie for all your work behind the scenes, and all of our guests and everyone who's watched. It's really been an awesome season. We will come back again in a month or so with a new theme, a new topic, a new idea, maybe even a new platform to continue the conversation, the dialogue. Rami and Rachel and Joey and Jason, good morning to all of you. Enjoy your cup of coffee. Thank you for waking up and thank you for joining us. And we look forward to seeing you very soon. Okay.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rabbi. Thank you.
Here we go now.